Hey folks, it's Sarge. Welcome back to another episode of A Little Bit of Everything with Sarge. Today we're going to talk about the one thing that a lot of preppers forget to prep for. Stay with me now. All right, thanks for staying with me. So let's start out with a little bit of a question of the day before we even get started. What is the one prep that you are working on right now? And let's give a small YouTuber shout out to Miss T with the T. Miss T has been a fantastic YouTube friend. She's got a great channel where she talks about, little financial hacks, ways you can save money. It's a pretty cool channel. Check it out. And she always shows love and support to the other small YouTubers, which is what, we got to grow together as a community, fam. So I'm not interested in trading subs, but if you are interested in genuinely supporting each other, right, like Miss T with the T does, then go ahead and let me know down below. Tell me about your channel. I'll go and check it out. If we decide that we're going to support each other, what that entails is watching videos to the end, always liking, always commenting, and giving an occasional shout out. So if you want to be YouTube friends and you're willing to throw in the time and commitment to make this work, I am too. That's actually going to tie in a little bit today to what we're talking about. So as usual, when we do one of these driving videos, always start your video before you go and stop it after you get to your location. Don't fool with your phone as you're driving, and in some parts of the country you may not even be able to do this. So today's topic of the day, what is the one thing that a lot of preppers forget to prep for? Well, when you get into prepping, everybody loves to get the gadgets, right? You got to have the cool flashlight, the cool pocket knife. When you're prepping, like preppers like to talk about, I'm prepping for a hurricane or the zombie apocalypse, hostile aliens landing on the robot uprising, economic collapse, a super virus, and all right, well, I guess those last two are kind of happening. Not really, though. Things can get a lot worse. But the most likely situation that you're going to have to deal with, the most likely emergency, crisis, or disaster that you're going to have to deal with is a little financial disaster, right? Like a medical issue, or you get, work slows down, you get laid off of work, major car repair, your car breaks down, you have a major house repair, right? That's the most likely for most of us situations that you're going to deal with, right? A mini financial crisis or a major financial crisis. So how do you prep for that? Well, this is the area that a lot of people neglect. Savings, right? So we all love our silver in the prepper community, right? Me too. You've seen my videos. I love my silver. But we got to have some cash put back, right? And by cash, I don't necessarily mean store it in your house. I'm talking about putting in savings, or maybe even a little investment that's safe, easy to get to, right? Like maybe a 30 or 90 day rollover CD, certificate of deposit, right? Something that you can get that money pretty quick. But a savings account is probably the easiest and the quickest way, right? So how much money should you be putting back? Well, I'm going to give you my guidelines, but keep in mind that, as always with my channel, you cannot legally construe anything I say as financial advice, and my channel is for entertainment purposes only. So let's pretend that this is old Sarge talking to young 20-year-old Sarge. And those days are long in my rearview mirror, by the way. But what I would say to young Sarge is, you need to have, at minimum, enough cash savings that you can pay your mortgage or your rent for 3 months, 3 months worth of groceries, 3 months worth of utility bills, and if you're on medications, any kind of medications, 3 months worth of medications. That's bare minimum, right? Because you can live without your cable, you could live without your phone, you could live without your gym membership. All these things you can cut out if you had to, but bare minimum, you want to have housing, food, medicine, and power, right? Electricity and water. Now, if you watch Sue Zorman, if you read her books, or Dave Ramsey, they're going to tell you much more. And I can't disagree with them. These people are extremely successful. I've read their books. I listened to Dave's podcast. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So what I'm going to tell you, if you can do 8 months, if you can do a full year of savings, more power to you. I'm telling young Sarge what the bare minimum would be. When you get to that point where you've got your housing, your medicines, your food, and your utilities covered for 3 months, I would say push just a little bit further and try to put back an extra 1,000 for a major home repair, a major medical issue, or a major car repair that is not covered through other things like your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance, or your health insurance. Hopefully you've got health insurance. What's the next step beyond that, right? So Sarge would say, old Sarge would say to young Sarge, if you want to, here's where you can get a little bit more creative with your money. So I like silver as a long-term hedge against inflation, a long-term storage of money, a long-term play against economic uncertainty, right? But that's not my only investment. And if you will listen to my more recent video where I was talking about that, the state of the, I think it's called the mid-year state of the silver union, you can do a whole lot better than that through stocks. And I'm talking about safe, what I would consider safe. There's no such thing as safe stocks. Safe stocks like Fortune 500 companies, big blue chips, dividend aristocrats. If you know what that is, that's when, you know, a company that's giving out dividends to their investors. I forget what it is. It's over 20 years, right? They've steadily given out dividends and increased dividends for, I think it's over 20 years, right? Those are pretty safe investments, even in with what we're going through right now with the economic downturn. I've just kept dropping money into there because it's at bargain. A lot of these are at bargain basement prices right now. And I'm talking about companies like Coca-Cola, 3M, Cisco, Johnson & Johnson. I'll do a video at some point where I show you my favorite dividend companies. Another option is, of course, if you want to go even safer than that, would be maybe like bond funds or certificate of deposit. You know, and even those are going to earn more in most of the time than silver bullion. Now, if you like silver bullion and you're like, I'm only putting my money in that, right? This is one that I hear in the prepper community is if I can't touch it, it's not real money. Okay, yeah, there's some truth to that, but I can use my profits from a little bit of swing trading to buy more silver, right? So I would say to young Sarge, don't completely throw the option of stocks and bonds and things like that completely out the window, because you're missing opportunities. Are we looking at economic collapse in this country at some point? It absolutely could happen. We're not there yet. And in the meantime, young Sarge should be taking advantage of this opportunity to create a little bit more wealth as a hedge against financial uncertainty, as a prep, okay? Let's come back to those dividend aristocrats here in a second. I want to talk about some other options, right? So recently I was reading that during times of financial crisis, and in my lifetime, as an adult, as somebody who was a part of the workforce, I can think of 3 major ones, right? We had, well, maybe 4. We had the dot-com bust, right? If you're old enough to remember the dot-com bust, and that was a pretty big crash. We had 9/11, which was created a little bit of a recession and a crash. We had the great real estate crash of 2000, what was that, 8 or 9? And I had to deal with a little bit of a financial crisis during that time, which I'll talk about in another video. And then, of course, now we have the pandemic, which has caused a major crash in the stock market and tons of unemployment, right? So there's 4 just in the past 20 years, okay? I was reading some stuff recently of very wealthy people, people who've been smart with their money, who have survived these financial crises, and I found out that very well-to-do people are, on average, have 7 streams of revenue, 7 different types of income coming in. So if they lose 1 or 2 go down, sorry about the camera shake here. Okay, so back to 7 streams of revenue. So if you have 7 streams of revenue and 2 go down, they're still able to survive, and they're still able to have basically the same quality of life that they've always had, right? So think about that. Think about that for a second. So do you have 7 streams of income? I don't. But it made me start to think about I needed to create some more passive income. So I do have a side job, right? I've talked about that, where I do consulting and public speaking. So that has actually turned into another revenue source. I do have, and now I don't count my IRA and my retirement stuff as revenue sources for me because I still have a good 25, 27 years to go. But if you're retired, you maybe can count those as part of your revenue streams, right? So I've got that. So I've got my my side hustle. I've got my main job. I know how to make some money through like eBay, you know, selling stuff from the garden. I've done that in the past, right? So maybe for you, that's another source of revenue. If you've got chickens, you can sell the eggs. I used to do pretty good with that when I had a little chicken farm. So what is your expertise, right? How do you turn that into another source of revenue? Are you crafty? You know, can you open up a little Etsy store? I mean, if you knew how to sew and you can get good fabrics from, you know, the fabric stores, you could be making a pretty good killing right now just selling masks with like the stuff that kids like, the superheroes and, you know, things like that. Open up your little Etsy store, right? Obviously, Mrs. T, who I mentioned before, and I are working on our YouTube channels because if you get to a certain point, that can create another revenue stream. I'll put the work in, and I know Mrs. T's putting the work in. You know, I ain't afraid of hard work to create another revenue stream that will create revenue for years to come. Now, the last part here I want to talk to you about, and remember, I'm talking to young Sarge, is dividend, passive dividend income, right? So what a dividend is, if you're not familiar with it, is certain company will give money back to their shareholders based on their profit, right? So I named a few of them before: Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Cisco, 3M, right? Those are some of the ones that I really like. So aside from your IRA, retirement income, your 403, your 401, if you've got that kind of stuff, you can do this, and they've made it's so easy now with companies that have these basically apps where you can have minimal trading experience. You can start with a very, very little amount of money because now they have like what's called fractional sharing, right? So if you want to buy share of Amazon, or actually let's say Apple, because I own a little Apple. If I want to buy a little bit more Apple, I think it's trading somewhere in the like the 300s per share. I didn't look before I did this video, sorry. You don't even have to have that much money. You can start with $5 or $10 and you can, you know, own a little tiny piece of Apple with fractional trading, right? You know, I've been putting some money into these companies because what I want to be able to do is create another revenue stream. I'll just, not even touching the principle of the, you know, not touching the stocks, not selling them, but taking that dividend income as just a little bit extra side income, right? So that's another example. When you can start to get up to, and some people call this mailbox money, right? Like once you get it started, you don't have to do a whole lot to keep it coming. It's just more income that's coming in. It might not be a lot, but let's get those 7 revenue streams going, right? It's a starting of a path of building some financial independence and some financial survivability. If you're in here because you're a prepper, you know that economic uncertainty or worse, you know, SHTF, could happen, and that's part of the reason why we're prepping, right? So you're stacking your cans, you're stacking your silver, you're storing up your band-aids, all of that is part of your preps, and you need to do that. And yes, we love our gear, but also if you're not doing it, start storing back some cash in your bank, okay? Thank you so much for tuning in here. If you haven't already done so, please hit that like button. It helps me out so much. Check out the description if you're interested in Olight, and comment down below. Don't forget about that question of the day, which was, what are you prepping for right now? We will see you next time on A Little Bit of Everything with Sarge.